Play it today, Lesson 38. We're going to start this lesson with a couple of exercises which will help prepare you for playing four-note chords. In each bar of exercises 357 and 358, you have to hold an octave with your thumb and fifth finger, while you play semiquaver thirds with your second and third or second and fourth fingers. This is far from easy, as you'll find out, and you'll need to start practicing quite slowly. Keep your second, third and fourth fingers well bent as you play the semiquavers, and make sure your arm and wrist stay relaxed. So here is exercise 357 for the right hand. And now, exercise 358 for the left hand. Our solo piece for this lesson, Beethoven's Romanza, is the second movement of his sonatina in G. It's not an especially difficult piece, but you need to pay careful attention to the detail. For instance, in the third line of music on the first page, watch how some of the notes in the right hand are staccato, while the left hand continues playing legato. By this stage, you should be noticing things like this for yourself. You'll certainly notice the acciaccaturas in the right hand. And look out for the arpeggio chords in the left hand, in the last two bars of the first page and the first bar of the second page. You met these arpeggios, marked with a wavy line, back in lesson 31. Remember that you play the notes of the chord one at a time, from the bottom to the top, holding the notes as you go, so you end up holding the whole chord. Anyway, you'll hear how it goes on the tape. We're going to play the Romanza for you without the repeats. The piece is in 6/8 time, 2 beats to a bar, but you'll hear 3 metronome beats at the start because the music begins on the second beat of the first bar. Romanza by Beethoven. At the top of page 448, there's a summary table showing all the fourth chords. You'll remember that we met this sort of chord in the last lesson. Play through the chords in the table at your leisure, and of course refer back to this page if you ever forget how a particular fourth chord goes and need to look it up. You know how to turn an ordinary three-note chord, a triad, into a seventh chord. Add B-flat to the C major triad, C, E and G, for instance, and you get the C dominant seventh chord. In the same way, you can turn a fourth chord into a dominant seventh. So, the fourth chord, C, F and G, becomes C, F, G and B-flat. This dominant seventh chord, with a fourth in place of the usual third, is designated as a 7/4 chord. There's a summary of these 7/4 chords on page 448, followed by an exercise using some of the chords. Here it is now, exercise 359. Another common variant on the seventh chords is the minor seventh with a diminished fifth in place of the usual perfect fifth. As you can see on page 449, the C minor seventh chord is C, E-flat, G and B-flat. If we lower the perfect fifth, G, by a semitone, we get the diminished fifth, G-flat. So C, E-flat, G-flat and B-flat is the minor seventh chord with a diminished fifth. In the same way, the B minor seventh chord, B, D, F sharp and A, has the fifth, F sharp, lowered a semitone to F. The B minor chord with a diminished fifth is B, D, F and A. As you can see in your booklet, there are two ways of indicating this chord. Either as, for example, CM7/5 and a minus sign, or as a circle, like a degree sign, with a line through it. This chord occurs on the seventh degree of the major scale. In C major, for instance, the chord is B, D, F and A. So you now know all of the chords on the major scale. Let's hear exercise 360, using the minor seventh chord with a diminished fifth. Exercise 360. Swing is a jazz style that developed in the 1930s and 40s. Read through page 450 of your booklet, which offers you some basic information about swing, and play through the chords in our example of a 32-bar swing sequence. Notice, though, that swing can sometimes have a much simpler 12-bar structure instead. Improvisation in swing music is much freer than in blues, so it gives us a good opportunity to develop that skill somewhat further. Let's work our way through the examples and exercises on pages 451 to 453. The idea is that you listen to each written-out example of a piece of improvisation on the cassette, play the example through on your keyboard again and again until you've got it off by heart, and then try to produce a very similar improvisation over the chords in the exercise that follows. You won't hear the exercises on the cassette. You really have to make this music up for yourself. In example A, the right hand improvises using all four notes of each chord played by the left hand. Notice the characteristic swing, dotted quaver, semiquaver rhythm. Example A. When you're ready, try exercise 361, playing the chords with your left hand and improvising with your right. Repeat it 4 times to create an 8-bar improvisation. To make this first exercise easier for you, we've used the same chords as in example A. Example B has a different rhythm in the right hand and uses a smaller selection of notes. Listen. When you're ready, try exercise 362. This time the chords are different because the exercise is in F major. But keep your right hand improvisation in the same rhythm and style as example B. Now here's example C, introducing a triplet on the second beat of each bar. Try to produce a similar improvisation in exercise 363 when you're ready. This exercise is in G major. Example D uses a different chord sequence as a basis for the improvisation. You have to improvise over the same chord sequence in exercise 364. Example E shows how in your improvisation you can use notes which are not in the underlying chord. Here, notes a semitone below notes in the chord are used, though notice how they resolve onto the note of the chord. The first F sharp, for instance, quickly resolves onto the G, which is a part of the first chord. Example E. Exercise 365 has the same chords for you to improvise on. Example F is rather similar to example E, but with some subtle variations. Exercise 366 requires you to improvise in G major in the same manner as example F. Finally, example G introduces a more varied rhythm in both the right and left hands. Exercise 367 gives you a chance to imitate example G, but in the key of F major. Swing for Mr Arnold is our piece with backing for this lesson. As you can see, only the right-hand part is written out. The left-hand chords you can add for yourself. This is a fairly simple version of the swing style, with a 12-bar blues structure to the harmony. In the second 12-bar section, bars 13 to 24, the right-hand part is basically a written-out improvisation. If you find this too difficult for you, just substitute a simpler improvisation of your own, before going back to the tune again at bar 25. In the last 3 bars, 35 to 37, the left hand is written out as well as the right. A very attractive formula like this for ending a piece is well worth getting off by heart. It can make your playing sound fairly sophisticated indeed. Let's listen now to Swing for Mr Arnold with keyboard and backing. Now here's the same piece without the keyboard part. To end this lesson, on page 456, you'll find a series of chord sequences using some of the new chords you've met in this lesson. Exercises 368 to 371 are in major keys, while exercises 372 to 374 are in minor keys. You won't hear these exercises on the tape. Play through the chords for yourself, improvising on them if you want. Working your way through chord sequences in different keys takes you right to the threshold of actually making your own music. So do try to get the sequences off by heart, and transpose them into other keys if you possibly can.